traveling on my birthday. And I was there for a week. And then I came back and I got sick. So if you hear me sounding a little nasal, please forgive me. Forgive my nose. But yes, so today is the first day that I have finally started feeling better, and I was like, let me go ahead and film. Thank you to everyone that has reached out to ask, was I okay? I promise I was okay during the time that you asked me, and then boom, out of nowhere, my throat started burning and my nostrils was burning, well, my nose was burning, and it just hit me so hard. But anyway, I will post the video along with pictures to show about my trip. It is a very beautiful place, so definitely you need to put that on a list to travel and do all of the excursions that you find interesting. But without further ado, without further ado? Whatever. I'm going to go ahead and get into this case. It's a disappearance case of Heather Elvis, and one of my lovely new subscribers has requested this case. So, thank you so much. It made it very easy for me just to go ahead and type it in and look it up. I do have my other phone here that I'm going to basically paraphrase what happened, as I always do in all of my videos. And if you guys hear a helicopter, I'm pretty sure it might have been an accident. So I apologize for that as well, but try not to pay attention to that. As I always say, if this is not a video that you can handle, or if you feel like this video will disrupt your day, your week, or whatever it is, please find in June of 2013, Heather, she had noticed a man that had came into the Tilted Kilt, and he was he repaired this restaurant, and his name is Sidney Moore. He was a 37-year-old married man. And again, like I said, he would come into this restaurant to repair the kitchen equipment. It was then that Heather started taking interest into this guy, and she had began making tweets that she had a taste for men who was older. So her roommate that she shared an apartment with, name is Bree Worrelman, and she was also a co-worker at the Tilted Kilt. She had said that Heather pointed out the guy Sidney at work. So almost a month after that, she had then started expressing sexual interest in the guy who builds things at my job, is what she tweeted. And she expressed a desire to rape him, which was her exact words. So it was several tweets that she continued to have about Sidney. She then put on there that baby did a bad thing, and I'm in a way too deep, but watch me get in deeper. So the friends and co-workers of Heather had recalled that she discussed the relationship she was having with them. So they eventually, took this relationship to a different level. And Sidney would often come into the restaurant to deliver coffee and bagels to her. And he was not scheduled to work that day to fix anything, so he was doing this on his own will, bringing her these things. He also then considered Heather to be a live-in nanny, because he said that him and his wife was moving to Florida, and he wanted Heather to be his children's nanny. So it was later said by Sidney that his affair with Heather was primarily confined only to the month of September of 2013. Later that month, Heather tweeted that once upon a time an angel and a devil fell in love. It did not end well, which everyone interpreted that it meant that her and Sidney's relationship had ended. One second, let me drink my coffee. So, shortly after this affair was going on between later told a friend that her husband and Heather had confined their relations to oral sex, and that Tammy had sent Heather texts and pictures of herself and Sydney in sexual situations. So again, Tammy, which is the wife, started telling her friends, I guess making jokes about how she would send Heather pictures of her and her husband having sex. For whatever reason, she found this to be appropriate. So she also went into the deep end, meaning Tammy, and in order to ensure that Sydney remained faithful to her, she would handcuff him at night, and then she later changed his phone password to a password that she only knew. And whenever Sydney was to travel outside of their home, she needed to be with him. But Sydney agreed to all of those restrictions because he thought that this really would save his marriage, and he didn't want a divorce from his wife. And then Tammy went to the absolute extreme and made Sydney tattoo her name above his private area. So during this period, Tammy then began constantly messaging Heather by saying, "Hey sweetie, ready to meet the MRS?" And I don't know what that means, but she then threatened her physically, and would imply that she was going to kill her husband, Sydney. So on November 1st, Heather texts back that she was no one. She texts Tammy back saying that Tammy didn't need to worry about her anymore. So these text messages kept coming from Tammy to Heather. Tammy also tried to get Heather fired from her job by calling the restaurant regularly and telling them that her husband was no longer going to repair anything at their restaurant as long as Heather remained working there. So then at one point, Sydney began texting Heather again, telling her that his wife basically his wife also was having an affair, and she was not objected by their relationship because she was having an affair of her own. So Heather had asked him when would he get his phone back, and he said that the relationship between him and Tammy was over. So she told Sydney that she wanted Tammy to stop calling her place of employment, and she said that she lost hours because they sent her home after she kept calling. On November 5th, when Heather last saw Sydney, she retweeted a joke by the comedian Daniel Tosh that seemed to be indirectly referencing the affair by saying, "Hey, married fellas, you can either cheat on your wife or murder her. Never both. That's when you get caught." So the Morris couple started going to church regularly with her roommate Bree. But she had put on weight, and her co-workers had noticed that her uniforms and bra sizes had went 3 sizes up. Heather was concerned that she was pregnant, possibly by Sydney, and her manager had said that she had taken one pregnancy test, but it came back as an error. So on the night of December 17th, Heather, that's her last name, had went on a date. This was her first time going on a date with anyone outside of her and Sydney, with another man by the name of Stephen Sheraldi. So at 10 p.m., he drove her around in the car so they can look at Christmas lights on residential homes. And then they later drove to the parking lot of the Inlet Square Mall, where he taught her how to drive his manual transmission vehicle. So Heather had sent photos of herself using the stick to her father and to Bree. So Stephen dropped Heather off at her Carolina Forest Department around 1:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and he was the last person who was known to see her. So 20 minutes later, a call was placed from a payphone to Heather's cell phone that lasted 5 minutes, and shortly after that, Heather had called Bree, she was out of the state visiting her family for the holidays, and she had told Bree that Sydney had called her and was planning to leave his wife, and he had asked her to meet him. Bree said that Heather was hysterical during this call, and she kept telling Heather to not do that. And after 2 minutes, the phone call had ended between Bree and Heather. So Heather's whereabouts had not been established beyond 1:45 a.m. on December the 18th. So on the evening of December 19th, Heather's green Dodge Intrepid was found parked perpendicular to the spaces it was in at the Peachtree Landing boat launch along the Waccamaw River in Socastee, about 8 miles from her apartment. The car was locked, and when they opened the car, Heather's phone, keys, and purse were not inside. Phone calls they noticed were phone calls to Heather's phone went unanswered. Excuse me, and she was not at her apartment nor either of her jobs. So Horry County Police started investigating as a missing person. And they investigated Stephen, which was again the last person to see her, but he was quickly cleared. The day after the car was found, a search of the area around the boat landing found no signs of Heather. And later, searches from the rescue divers also came up empty. A set of bones was discovered nearby around New Year's Day, but that was later found to belong to a male. So cell phone records, they were able to obtain Heather's phone records, which showed a lot of activity in the morning over the 2 hours that she had told Bree that Sydney had called her, although they cannot determine if Heather was the one using the phone. So pings showed that at 2:30 a.m. a call had been made from the phone to the payphone that had made the call. Heather said came from Sydney, but no one the phone called Sydney's phone again, then located at his house, resulting in, so it showed that Sydney was home when he answered the call, or whoever answered the call. And that conversation lasted 4 minutes. At 3:37 a.m., about 8 minutes after the call ended, the phone was taken to Peachtree Landing. And a minute later, 3 attempts are made to call Sydney's phone. Within that time, all of the calls were unanswered. At 3:41, another attempt was made. A minute and a half later, data records for Heather's phone and its location could only be identified as somewhere in the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge. So Tammy and Sydney's phone records were also examined, and it was no communication between the two from those phones from November 2nd. The day that Sydney later testified, he surrendered his phone to Tammy as a condition of remaining married until 4:37 a.m. December 18th. So, just to sum that up, there was no exchanges, no communications between Tammy and Sydney from November 2nd through December 18th. And the explanation from Sydney was that he had surrendered his phone to her, so he didn't have his phone. So that's why they weren't communicating. But then on December 18th was the time that they finally exchanged texts, when Tammy had sent him a text asking for pot stickers and orange juice, and Sydney replied, "Yes, ma'am." So police have found video evidence that linked Sydney with Tammy's activities in the early hours of December 18th. So surveillance was picked up from the Myrtle Beach Walmart at 1:12 a.m. that night that showed Sydney entered the store, and he purchased cigars and a pregnancy test and left after 7 minutes. And then footage from a Kangaroo gas station on Joe White Avenue showed that Sydney made the call from a payphone across the street to Heather's cell phone at 1:35 a.m. Investigators also reviewed footage from private security cameras along the 3 miles between the Moore's house and Peachtree Landing. 2, one at a home midway along the route and another close to the landing, showed a dark Ford F-150 passing in the direction of Peachtree Landing at 3:36 and 3:39 a.m. And then at 3:45 and 3:46 a.m., the vehicle returns going the opposite direction. The license plate was not visible. However, an analysis of the video by the Highway Patrol and the FBI determined it was Sydney's. So the first 2 arrests in the case were not Tammy and Sydney. It was Heather's family, which is William Christopher Barrett and Garrett Ryan Starnes. And they were arrested on January 28th of 2014 and charged with obstruction of justice. So the police had said that both of the men had posted information on social media that was either false or misleading, and that the investigators had wasted their time diverting their searches by these tips that these 2 men had put up. justice, and two counts each of indecent exposure. So the latter charge resulted from sexually explicit images found on their phones that were determined to have been taken of themselves in public places. So that's where that indecent exposure charge came from. So the obstruction charges against Sidney were a result from his early denial of his use of the payphone, which again was found out to be a lie because they had the video footage from that gas station. And news conferences, police did not go into detail about what evidence supported the murder and kidnapping charges. So both of them posted the $20,000 bond for the obstruction and exposure charges, but later waived the bond on the kidnapping charges in favor of the murder charges, on which they initially held without bond. A month after the arrest, the court imposed a gag order on all participants in the case. So in June, the police then added more charges due to Medicaid fraud, and said that in 2007, an application for benefits that exceeded $10,000. The Moores had failed to disclose the income from their businesses. So this case had drew heavy support on social media, and Tammy and Sidney had painted Heather as a stalker on various sites, especially their Facebook pages, suggesting that the police had framed them and were protecting the real killers. In early 2015, the Moores were released from jail, where they had been held for a preceding 11 months, after a judge accepted Tammy's mother's house as a collateral sufficient to guarantee the $100,000 bond on the murder charges. At the bond hearing, prosecutors told the court that they still had no direct evidence linking the couple to Heather's disappearance. Heather's family argued against the release, claiming they had received threats from the Moore family and their supporters, so the court had required Sidney and Tammy to agree to GPS monitoring of their whereabouts and to stay within 5 miles away. From the Elvis family home, and to not interact with them on social media. So due to the continuous threats against Sidney and Tammy, it was difficult for them to find work in Horry County. So the court allowed the Moores to move to Florida, where Sidney found a job while the case was still pending. They were required to continue to meet their bail conditions and waive extradition from Florida should they violate them. In March of 2016, prosecutors dropped the murder charges against both Tammy and Sidney without prejudice, meaning they could be reinstated later should the state decide to. The indecent exposure charges were also dropped, along with the obstruction charge against Tammy. But the charges related to the alleged Medicaid fraud remained.